Good morning, class. So, today we're going to study the fifth chapter, India's Social and Religious Reforms. Before going ahead of this chapter, if any doubts regarding the fourth chapter, please message on the SYJC history group. Okay. So, in this chapter, what are we going to see? We're going to see is call for social and religious reforms, age of reforms, religious reform movements, contribution of social reformers, and contribution of the rulers of the princely states. Now, the contribution of the Indian social reformers who emerged from the first generation of Indians and who studied under the new educational system introduced by the British is very significant. Okay, the visionaries in the Indian society were aware that political freedom was not adequate without internal transformation. It could happen through social and religious reforms. Hence, it is essential that we briefly review the social religious reform movement. Rajaram Mohan Roy's efforts was the beginning point of these movements. So we all must have heard Rajaram Mohan Roy, right? We have studied him in our previous history lessons when we were in school. Back then in school, we must have heard about this great guy. He was a very good socialist. He was a very great guy. He was from Bengal, from Calcutta. Okay, and so what exactly this chapter tells us that these guys, the reformers, the socialists, they knew what was the problem. They knew that unless and until Indians would, the Indian villagers would not be educated. Okay, for example, if sati is wrong, Indians would still do it. Okay, I'm giving you an example. So they had to educate the Indians in that way. They started planning all that, how, what, when, how should we do it. So here we have the first thing, call for social and religious reforms. The progress of Indian society was stunted because of superstitions, orthodox way of life, caste discrimination, false notions, lack of curiosity and rationality that prevailed on large scale. As I said, so many things. हमारे देश में इतने सारी चीज़ें हो रही थी, superstitions हो रही थी, like अछूत and then like ब्राह्मण एंड क्षत्रिय, तुम बड़ी जाति के, हम छोटी जाति के, तुम पहले खाना नहीं खा सकते, वैसे वैसे बहुत सारी चीज़ें थी हमारे देश में. That the social reformers who were trained in the modern education system introduced by the British developed a different world view. अभी कुछ लोग हमारे भारत देश में they were educated. देखिए, ब्रिटिश की जो पढ़ाई है, जो पढ़ाई है, उन लोग को दिमाग थोड़ा बदल गया, उनका वे ऑफ थिंकिंग अलग हो गया. लाइक फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अभी अगर मैं आप लोग से पूछूं कि सती बुरी बात है कि अच्छी बात है, तो आप क्या बोलेंगे मुझे? आप सब पढ़े लिखे. आई एम नॉट सेइंग कि अनपढ़ लोग भी सोचते हैं, पर मैं उस जनरेशन की बात कर रही हूँ, बहुत पहले. ठीक है, बहुत साल पहले की बात करूँ मैं, अभी की बात नहीं करूँ, बहुत साल पहले की बात करूँ. या ये छोड़ो, सती के बारे में छोड़ो. डिस्क्रिमिनेशन, क्या डिस्क्रिमिनेशन अच्छी चीज़ है? क्या हमें भेदभाव करना चाहिए? नहीं ना, नहीं करना चाहिए. सो एजुकेटेड पर्सन में वहाँ पे वो एरा में जब लोगों को शिक्षा नहीं मिलती थी तो उनको पता नहीं था कि क्या करना है. लेकिन जो कुछ लोग जो ब्रिटिश लोगों के हिसाब की पढ़ाई जो होती थी, द एजुकेशन दे, तो उन लोग वो अडाप्ट करते थे. वो लोग पढ़ते थे, अरे इन लोग का तो बहुत अलग व्यू है, मतलब अगर डिस्क्रिमिनेशन है तो कैसे दिए है, क्या करना है, डिस्क्रिमिनेट नहीं करना चाहिए, क्यों नहीं करना चाहिए, ऐसा वैसा सब अच्छे से उनको एक्सप्लेन करके सब बताया गया है. इसलिए उनका पूरा माइंड चेंज, उनका व्यू ऑफ थिंकिंग चेंज हो गया था. और उनको लगा था कि अभी एक नीड हो गई है ऑफ क्रिएटिंग अ न्यू इंडियन सोसाइटी विच चेरिश्ड द प्रोग्रेसिव वैल्यूज ऑफ फ्रीडम, इक्वालिटी, फ्रेटर्निटी एंड ह्यूमनिज्म. ठीक है, हमारे देश में फ्रीडम, इक्वालिटी, फ्रेटर्निटी एंड ह्यूमनिज्म बहुत कम मात्रा में दिखे गए थे. फ्रीडम औरतों को नहीं था. घर के बैठ के खाना पकाओ, घर के बाहर मत जाओ, कुछ मत करो, पढ़ाई मत करो। लेकिन आज की औरतें को इतना फ्रीडम मिला है घर से, घर पे घर पे काम भी करती है, बाहर काम करती है, फिर पढ़ाई करती है। इतना सब कुछ अगर आज की औरतें कर रही है, आज की नारी कर रही है। सो मेनी थिंग्स अ वुमेन इज डूइंग। ठीक है। दूसरी बात, इक्वालिटी। इक्वालिटी, हमारे जो सब कास्ट भाई बहन हैं, द कास्ट ब्रदर्स एंड सिस्टर्स, उनके ऊपर, जो कम जाति वाले लोग हैं उनके ऊपर देखते नहीं थे लोग, उनको अछूत माना जाता था। नो, दैट वाज, तो वो भी इक्वालिटी नहीं थी देश में, तो उनके बारे में वो सोच रहे थे दैट वे। Therefore, they began to work towards creating mass awareness and various social and religious issues. ठीक है, उनका ये कब थिंकिंग हो गया था। The age of reforms. तो राजा राम मोहन रॉय was born in Bengal. ठीक है। अभी ये राजा राम मोहन रॉय कौन थे? ये एक बहुत बड़े सोशोलॉजिस्ट थे, मतलब सोशोलॉजिस्ट, और सॉरी नॉट सोशोलॉजिस्ट, रिफॉर्मर थे। ठीक है, ये बहुत बड़े रिफॉर्मर थे और इन्होंने ही बंगाल से शुरुआत की थी। ओके, ही ट्रांसलेटेड संस्कृत उपनिषद्स इन बंगाली। उन्होंने ये कि वो बहुत पढ़े लिखे भी थे बाय द वे। द एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ विटनेसिंग हिज ब्रदर्स वाइफ इमोलेटिंग हरसेल्फ ऑन हर हस्बैंड्स फ्यूनरल हर्टेड हिम डीपली। ठीक है, उन्होंने ना उनके जो बड़े भाई थे, उनकी जब बीवी जो वो सती की कस्टम्स फॉलो कर रही थी, तो उनको बहुत बहुत ज़्यादा दुख हुआ और बहुत गुस्सा भी आने लगा। और उन्होंने क्या किया, ही पब्लिश्ड अ लेटर अबाउट द इविल प्रैक्टिस ऑफ सती। मतलब एक तो पढ़े लिखे हैं वो, तो लिखते थे वो ये सती के बारे में। और दूसरी बात, ये बहुत अमीर घर के इंसान थे। ही वॉज वेरी रिच, ही वॉज फ्रॉम अ वेरी रिच फैमिली. Now, he was the first Indian to point out that none of the Indian religious texts mention the practice of sati as a prescribed religious obligation. मतलब इन्होंने ये एक पहले इंसान थे जिन्होंने बोला था कि हमारे धर्म के जो, मतलब फॉर एग्जांपल गीता, अब अभी देखिए, मुझे ज़्यादा इन्फॉर्मेशन तो नहीं है गीता महाभारत का, इतना सब इन्फॉर्मेशन, लेकिन किसी भी धर्म में सती के बारे में ऐसा कुछ नहीं लिखा है कि कोई भी भगवान चाहेगा क्या कि अपने बच्चों को आग में जलने दे, ऐसा कुछ नहीं। तो वो पहले आदमी थे जिसने ये बात कही थी। इट इज़ बिकॉज उनके ही एफर्ट्स के वजह से अ लॉ वॉज पास्ड बाय द गवर्नर जनरल लॉर्ड विलियम बेंटेनिक abolishing the practice of sati in 1829. अभी लॉर्ड विलियम बेंटिंक BENTINCK उन्होंने अबॉलिश किया था द प्रैक्टिस ऑफ सती इन 1829. वो कौन थे? गवर्नर जनरल थे. ठीक है. नाउ he was also opposed to the practice of child marriage and segregation of women. That was पर्दा सिस्टम. Segregation of women is पर्दा सिस्टम. उनको और एक बात अच्छी नहीं लगी थी कि बाल विवाह वो टाइम पे बाल विवाह मतलब बहुत ज़्यादा होता था. मतलब 14 साल, 15 साल, 17 साल, 16 साल. I mean, सोच के तो देखो भाई, तुम्हारी शादी अब तुम वो एज के हो, 15, 16, 17 ईयर्स के हो, कुछ लोग 18, 19 के भी होंगे. तुम सोच के देखो भाई कि भाई अभी मेरी शादी होती, मैं क्या करता? कुछ नहीं. तो इमेजिन, सो दैट्स हाउ चाइल्ड मैरिज स्टॉप. बिकॉज वो देख सकते थे कि एक तो अगर शादी होती है तो पढ़ने ज़्यादा मौका नहीं मिलता लड़कियों को. पहली बात तो लड़कियों को नहीं मिलता कुछ भी, ऊपर से लड़के लोग भी बन जाते, बहुत जल्दी बन जाते. इतने जल्दी उनको चालू नहीं करना है ना घर गृहस्थी, दैट वे. और सेग्रीगेशन ऑफ वुमेन, पर्दा सिस्टम. अभी पर्दा सिस्टम क्या होता है? अभी तक होता है कुछ एरियाज में कि अगर आदमी बाहर बैठ के कुछ चीज़ें पे बात कर रहा है, ठीक है, और औरतें किचन में काम कर रही, औरतें आ ही नहीं सकती बाहर. अगर आती है तो पर्दा पूरा डाल के आती है. देख, वो सब रिलीजियस कस्टम्स वस्टम्स वो सब है, लेकिन उन्होंने बोला कि ऐसा क्यों? ठीक है, औरतें भी आनी चाहिए, पर्दा सिस्टम हटनी चाहिए. वैसे औरतें भी बात करें. स्कूल, उन्होंने इंग्लिश मीडियम स्कूल खुलवाया. He also launched the first weekly periodical in Bengali. He was the first. ठीक है, एक बार बहुत अच्छे से याद रखो ये फर्स्ट में कौन कौन से एरिया में थे. पहला तो he was the first to point out that none of the Indian religion texts mention the practice of sati as a prescribed religious obligation. दूसरा फर्स्ट कब था? जब उन्होंने पहला वीकली पीरियोडिकल बंगाली में रिलीज किया. लेटर ही लॉन्च्ड अनदर पब्लिकेशन इन पर्शियन लैंग्वेज. उनको पर्शियन लैंग्वेज बहुत अच्छे से आता था. उनको. और बंगाली, पर्शियन, इंग्लिश ये लैंग्वेजेस उनको बहुत अच्छे से आती थी. ही ऑल्सो स्टार्टेड अ फिलोसॉफिकल डिस्कशन सर्कल नेम आत्माया सभा. ओके, ये उन्होंने सर्च किया था. दिस सर्कल बिकेम a platform for searching similarity value system of different religions. अभी 1828 में he founded Brahmo Samaj and proclaimed that God is one and there is no need to worship idols to propitiate him. Okay, now he मतलब Rajaram Mohan Roy in support of anti-colonial movements in the Spanish colonies in South America. He supported the liberal people in Spain who were against the monarchical rule. In 1830, he had gone to England to plead the case of the Mughal emperor. In recognition of this, Mughal emperor conferred the title of Raja on him. He stayed in England for 2 years. Later, he went to France. In India, he enfolded Europe for the Indians, and similarly, whenever in Europe, he enfolded India to Europeans. ठीक है, अभी क्या हुआ था? एक इशू हुई थी मुगल एम्परर और इंग्लैंड के बीच में. तो उनको सॉल्व करने के लिए ना राजा राम मोहन रॉय को भेजा गया. पहला उनका नाम राम मोहन रॉय था, लेकिन मुगल एम्परर ने उनको एक टाइटल दिया. वो टाइटल क्या था? राजा. रॉय बिगेन ट्रेन्ड इन द ब्रिटिश रेजिमेंट, लेड द फाउंडेशन ऑफ मॉडर्निटी in India through his writings and work. Organizations like Manav Dharam Sabha, Paramhas Sabha and Dhyan Prasar Sabha were inspired by his work. ऐसे सभा इंस्पायर्ड हो गए थे. Now religious reform movements. अभी movements क्या थे? Okay, so we have Pratana Samaj had its origin in the Brahmas Sabha. It was founded by किससे founded थे? दादोबा Pandurang Tarkhadkar. The founding members of Pratana Samaj like Dr. Atmaram Pandurang, Justice M.G. Rande, Dr. R.G. Bhandarkar opposed idol worship and emphasized on the principle of one supreme God. उसे मोनोथिज्म बोलते हैं. मोनोथिज्म किससे बोलते हैं? वन सुप्रीम गॉड. दे ओपन ऑफनेजेस, स्कूल फॉर गर्ल्स एंड नाइट स्कूल्स फॉर वर्कर्स. दे फोकस्ड ऑन द इम्पोर्टेंस ऑफ जेंडर इक्वालिटी, वाइपिंग आउट कास्ट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन and also on appreciating the values of mundane life. Satya Sodak Samaj. In 1873, Mahatma Jyotirao Phule founded Satya Shodhak Samaj in Pune. किसने फाउंड किया था? महात्मा ज्योतिराव फुले. in 1873 क्या था? सत्य शोधक समाज. It challenged intellectual and rationally unjust religious traditions. Mahatma Phule cracked a whip on social customs and practices which pushed the masses of Indian society into a miserable state. He showed a new path to the farmers, artisans, workers, and various suppressed caste for their upliftment. The characteristics of Satya Shodhak Samaj included monotheism, rejection of authority of Veda Puranas, acceptance of rationality, opposition to the dominance and the intrusions of the priest and idol worship, pilgrimage, disbelief in miracles, and opposition to the notion of a world after death. Mahatma Phule and Savitribai Phule took initiative in the movement of education for girls by starting a school for them. They emphasized on the fact that educating the girls is the only way to the emancipation. The work of educating girls was continued by Pandita Ramabai and Ramabai Ranade. ठीक है, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट नाम हमने सुने हैं ना, महात्मा ज्योतिराव फुले और सावित्रीबाई फुले. गर्ल्स के लिए क्या क्या किया उन लोगों ने. Now, the social system in India was based on social inequality. Mahatma Phule worked for creating a social system based on equality. His work was continued by Gopal Baba Walankar, who severely criticized untouchability in his book Vittal Vittal with Vamsan, that was destroying development. Shivram Janba drew attention to the problems of the deprived women like Murali, Jogatani, and Devdasi. Now we come to Arya Samaj. See, we have studied about Pratna Samaj, Satya Shodhak Samaj. Now we have Arya Samaj. Now these are all the reform movements, okay, religious reform movements. Arya Samaj. Swami Dayanand Saraswati founded Arya Samaj in 1875. In 1875, who founded? Swami Dayanand Saraswati founded Arya Samaj. Now, Arya Samaj regarded Vedas as a holy books. Arya Samaj rejected discrimination based on caste difference and encouraged education of women, widow remarriage, and intercaste marriages. The Ramakrishna Mission. Okay, the Swami Vivekananda established Ramakrishna Mission in 1897. 1897, Ramakrishna Mission by Swami Vivekananda. Ramakrishna Mission focused more on serving needy people. They worked for the people affected by famine, healthcare for the sick people, serving the weak, upholding the cause of education for women, and spiritual betterment. It gave a message to the Indian youth to get up, to awaken, and keep moving until the goal is achieved. स्वामी विवेकानंद के बारे में बहुत सुना है ना हम लोगों ने, क्या क्या करते थे वो, कैसे मदद करते थे लोगों को, a lot of things. The next point we have contribution of social reformers. अभी उन्होंने क्या क्या contribute किया. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. He was born in 1817 in Delhi. He was fluent in Urdu, Persian, Arabic, and English. He had edited Ani-in Akbari, a book about Emperor Akbar's administration, written by Abul Fazl. He established scientific society for Muslims. Members of the society were scholars of history, science, and political economy. In 1869, he went to England. After returning from England, he founded Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College in 1875. Later, it developed into Aligarh Muslim University. He started a periodical entitled Mohammedan Social Reformer. He worked for the propagation of modern education, science, and technology. Next we have is ताराबाई शिंदे. बहुत सारे important नाम्स हैं, आप देखे जाएंगे, बहुत रिपीट होते हैं हिस्ट्री में. Okay, it will be easy for you guys. Now, she was born in 1839. Okay, she was born in 1839. She wrote an essay comparing the situation of women and men. In this essay, she wrote about women's rights. She expressed her thoughts in a very upfront manner. She did not just stop at discussing about reforms like widow remarriage, women's education, abolition of sati, but proceeded to demand gender equality. Considering the time frame of her essay, it was indeed very brave step. मतलब बहुत बड़ा कदम उठाया ताराबाई शिंदे ने. उनको पता था कोई भी औरत अगर आवाज़ उठाती थी तो वो मार दिया जाती थी या उसे चुप किया जाता था. Now she opined that religious systems suppress women because religions are created by men. Mahatma Phule justified her thoughts by giving resolved answers to her critics. Now Maharishi Vittal Ramji Shinde, he opened Marathi schools and schools for technical training in Parel, Deonar, in Mumbai, in Mumbai under the umbrella of Depressed Classes mission that was established by him. He worked to create public awareness about issues affecting the depressed classes like entry in temples, for example, prostitutions for right of the entry in Parvati temple in Pune, agricultural conference and joint electorate system of depressed classes. वो depressed classes के लिए काम करते थे basically. Now we have a very great man, Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar. Now Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar had determined to work for creating a society based on the principles of freedom, equality and fraternity. He began a movement for fighting the caste system and bringing equality. वो भी caste system के लिए लड़ते हैं. He gave a platform of Baishi Kurta Hitkarni Sabha. Educate yourself, get united and fight. This movement led to the Satyagraha of Chavadar Tank at Mahad. Okay. Now in 1930 he launched a satyagrahi to open the Kala Ram temple in Nasik for all. The Karamveer Dada Saheb Gaikwad headed this satyagraha. किसने head किया ये सत्याग्रह? Karamveer Dada Saheb Gaikwad. Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar knew the importance of print media. For him, it was the best instrument for creating public awareness and to build a movement for social equality. He began to publish his own newspaper, namely Mukhnayak, Bahishurut, Bharat, Janta and Samata. He formed Independent Labour Party for the good future of the working class. Later he formed Scheduled Caste Federation to continue the work of shaping a society based on equality. Abhi tak hai, theek hai? In 1959, along with his numerous followers, he got initiated to Buddhism. Among his contributions, the most important is the drafting of the Constitution of India. उनका भी हाथ था, ठीक है? Drafting Constitution India में. Now Ram Swami Naikar. He was born in Erodi, a city in Tamil Nadu, in 1879. He began his work in 1920 as a member of the Congress. He became a follower of Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy and worked for propagating the use of SYJC and for the right of the temple entry to all. Okay. Now he participated in the Vaikom Satyagraha in Travancore against untouchability. He started Swabhiman Andolan in Tamil Nadu. He fought against the Varna system and child marriage. People began to address him as Prayar, that was great soul, because of his magnificent work. Okay, he was a great speaker and author. He took a radical position on the issues like women's rights and family planning. Kamala Devi Chattopadhyaya. Okay, she was an active volunteer of Congress. Now she convinced Mahatma Gandhi to let women participate in salt satyagraha. उन्होंने कहा था महात्मा गांधी से. She herself participated in satyagraha. She worked for women's rights throughout her life. She organized demonstrations to draw attention to the problems of workers and farmers. She emphasized on justice to female agricultural laborers. Okay. She was imprisoned for 1 year by the British for the participating in Quit India Movement. Quit India Movement के बारे में सुना होगा आप लोगों ने. उसके लिए भी उनको गिरफ्तार किया गया है. The last and the final point that we have is a contribution of the rulers of princely states. Now Maharaj Saiji Rao Gaikwad. Now Maharaj Saiji Rao of Baroda State had adopted progressive policies. He made provisions of free schooling and free hostels for the students from the untouchability tribal class. He also encouraged women's education and also opened a center for physical training of women. He started various programs such as Community Fest for all caste, Gram Panchayat in every village, literal literate gram panchayat members, library in every village, compulsory primary education, compulsory physical training for boys and girls, ban of child marriages, widow remarriage, etc. He also provided courses based on agro industries for students for farmer facilities. For farmer families. He passed a resolution for assuring to share in ancestral property to married as well as widowed women. देखा उन्होंने क्या किया? He was from Barodra state. Now Rajashri Shahu Maharaj, the ruler of Kolhapur, he supported Baba Saheb Ambedkar's leadership by leading the non-Brahmanical movement in the state. He made a public declaration of reservations and passed a resolution for free and compulsory primary education. He also is very strongly opposed the customs of Roti Bandi, that is restriction on eating together, Beti Bandi, that was restrictions of intercaste marriages, and one more thing was Vyavasa Bandi, that was restrictions on participating in occupations other than ancestral occupation of one's caste. He made a law of intercaste marriages. People in the state were permitted to choose any occupation. Thus, all these social reformers created a positive picture for future of our country. It was necessary to build a society with firm intellectuals and rational base for obtaining freedom from the British rule. So, if you see, there are so many people, these reformers, so many people, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, then Majotira Phule, Savitribai Phule, so many, Dr. Ambedkar, so many people who who had a vision for India. उनका सिर्फ एक सब मैं आपको बताती हूँ, सबका साथ में विजन था. पहले तो वुमेन की राइट्स को लड़ने के लिए जो भी देश में हो रहा है उनको इक्वालिटी लाने के लिए, फ्रीडम लाने के लिए, ठीक है. ये सब उनका विजन था, क्योंकि ये लोग सब पढ़े लिखे लोग थे, ठीक है. और उन्होंने बहुत मेहनत किया.